Hi everyone. Now I'm hoping that you can see me. Last week we were fighting with Facebook to try and get our live video going. So this week you should now be able to see the screen, and on the screen you should see the Living Your Best Life in Africa logo, which is here, and template 1, which is the template we're going to use to identify your dreams. Now, I'm not certain if you can see me. I can't see anyone. All I can see is my screen. So what you need to do is, if there are any issues, if you just tap into the comments on the live, and I'll do my best to pick those up and to then address them as we're going through. I don't intend to keep you very long. My presentation should be about 30 minutes, and then there'll be some time for questions and answers. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Asha Sefinit Wadasi, and I am the creator of the Living Your Best Life in Africa podcast, and also the Living Your Best Life in Africa Start Your Side Hustle training program. Now, the whole purpose behind Living Your Best Life in Africa is not necessarily for you to live in Africa. Living in Africa is a metaphor for actually that perfect life. I don't know about you, but me, when I was younger, my dream was to live in that hot country of my dreams. And I always felt that that country was going to be in Africa, somewhere on the African continent. And when I was working towards that dream, I knew that for me to be able to do that, to go and live somewhere completely different to the UK where I'm from, I knew that I would need to have an income. I would need to have money to enable me to be able to live, so that I wouldn't have to just holiday. I hated having to holiday. 2 weeks off, then you come back, and then you've got to wait another year before you can go again. It just didn't suit me. So what I wanted to do was to have a way to generate an income so that I could run my own side hustle and live where I wanted to live, making a modest income so that I didn't have to come rushing back. And that is where the Living Your Best Life in Africa concept was born. One of the first things that you have to do when you're thinking about radically changing your life, and in particular changing your life to sack your job and to have a lifestyle that you want, is you do have to think about where your money is going to come from. How are you going to make the money you need to be able to build that dream? Because building the dream is easy, but then step 2 is to sustain that dream. How is that going to happen? The whole idea about being able to identify your dreams is that you can then use those dreams to inspire you to then think about what you can do to be able to make those dreams a reality. And particularly when you look at this picture here, this picture here was a real motivator for me, because I live in Yorkshire, which is a little town or city. It's actually a city in the north of the UK. And when it snows there, this is how we used to play in the snow when we were younger. And I always remember hating going to school in that snow. And I always used to say, you know, I'm going to live in a warm country where I never have to deal with snow again. And this picture always reminds me of those experiences. And I use it as a motivator. And as I say in the information, let this picture inspire you to begin picturing your dream life out of your plantation job. One of the biggest difficulties that we have in being able to even envisage our dreams and our best life is being tied to that job, tied to the 9 to 5. Now, it's not a criticism, it's a reality that when you are tied to a job, it stops you from being able to dream, because the very first thing that you're going to see or think is that there isn't anything you will be able to do to be able to make your dream a reality, because you are focused on having to deal with the job. So what we're going to do is start looking at your dreams so that you can, I'm just going to move this page up. We're going to start looking at your dreams so that you can at least have something to inspire you. Now, you should be able to see the identify my living my best life dream. Where do I see myself in 3 to 5 years? Now, why is that important? It's important because most people don't even dream past the first few months. And when you're only dreaming from paycheck to paycheck, from month to month, your dreams are very limited and they're very, very short. They're usually focused on paying a bill or saving some money this month to pay something off next month. And the whole idea about having dreams that cast you into the future, 3 to 5 years, is that it gives you something to inspire you to go beyond the limitations of the wage, to go beyond the limitations of the job. So what you can see on the screen is template number 1, which is the template that I created to allow you to split your dreams into smaller parts to make it easier for you to identify those dreams, think about how you're going to achieve those dreams, identify what or who is going to prevent you from achieving your dreams, and also to think about what skills, knowledge, experience, etc. that you're going to need to help you to identify those dreams. Now, in the template here, you can see that I identified my dreams when I created this template. And in the first section, it says, I see myself living in Africa or in a warm country of my dreams. And underneath that, think about the different parts that might make up your dream and put each part in a separate box and then map it out. So this was my dream. I see myself living in Africa or in a warm country of my dreams. And of course, I now live in Malawi, which is a small country the size of the UK down the east side of the African continent, sandwiched between Zambia, Tanzania and Mozambique. So those 3 countries completely envelop my country, but that's where I live. I live in Malawi. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to map this template as if I were not in Malawi so that you can see how I achieved that dream. So my dream was to see myself living in Africa or in a warm country of my dream. And so the first part was to map out what I was going to do to achieve that. So for me to be able to live in that country, first of all, I needed to have a replacement income. The next thing that I wanted to do was I needed to choose the country where I wanted to live. I needed to think about what I was going to do about my home in the UK. Now, if you've got more than one dream, then you simply move to the next box and put your dream in that box. If you've only got one dream, then what you can do is just put each of your areas in a separate box and just give yourself some space. And you can see on the video as I quickly move this around that you can just put all the different parts to your dream in a separate box if you prefer to do it that way. Okay, duplicated there. So you can see these are the 3 parts of my dream, and all the different parts you can put them in. You can put them in a different box, and you can go over onto the other page because there's 2 pages for your dreams. You can go over onto the other page if you need to. Okay, so I've got 3 parts. I'm not going to make it too complicated. I needed to have a replacement income. I needed to choose the country where I wanted to live. And I needed to think about what I was going to do about my home in the UK. The 3 key goals I needed to achieve that dream. The first one was where I said I need to have a replacement income. So the first thing was that I needed to know how much it would cost me to live every day in the UK. Because once I know that, I then know how much my new income from my side hustle would need to raise for me every single day. And the figure for me, when I first did this exercise, 8-9 years ago, was over £90 a day. I don't know what that is in dollars, but it was over £90 a day. As the years have gone on and I've been working and generating income from my side hustles and reducing that figure now stands at £30 a day. And you can see that if you know you have to raise £30 a day or £90 a day, you can see £30 is much more achievable than 90. And later on in these lives, I'll go through how you calculate that daily living cost. Okay? The second goal I needed to help me to achieve that dream was for me to be able to choose a country where I wanted to live. As you can see, I needed to visit a few African countries to whet my appetite. I'm just going to move that there. I needed to visit a few African countries. How am I going to know where I want to live if I don't visit any countries? And so what I did, I knew that as long as I had £90 in the bank for every single day that I was going to be away visiting African countries, I knew I would have enough income to cover the time when I was away. So once I'd sorted out the income part to be able to stay away and visit my African countries, I then needed to choose which countries I wanted to live in or which countries I wanted to visit. The first ever country I visited was South Africa. There were things I loved about South Africa, but the thing I hated about South Africa the most was it was so much like the UK. When I went to South Africa, it wasn't that long, probably about maybe 10 years after apartheid. And I still felt the energy of that. And the other thing about South Africa is that it has a climate that is very much like the UK. And to me, that just defeats the object. So I visited South Africa, decided, nah, don't want to live there. I then went to Kemet, to Egypt. And I loved it there. I absolutely loved it there. The one thing that I just didn't like about Egypt was not seeing many people who looked like me. Throughout all of the incursions into Egypt, Egypt looks very Arabized now. And so I didn't feel comfortable there. I then went to Ghana, and I loved it there as well. Ghana is definitely a country where I could live. Beautiful climate, lovely people, and if you've ever visited the Caribbean, it's very much like the Caribbean in terms of the houses, how people live, how they interact with each other. The only thing that's different is the language. So I visited Ghana. I then visited Ethiopia, loved it there, almost lived in Ethiopia, almost bought property there. What had happened is that a really good friend of mine had come to the UK for a while, and so that kind of meant that we were linking up in the UK. And during that process of linking up, I then visited Malawi. And I have to tell you, I absolutely love Malawi. Don't get me wrong, Malawi is no bed of roses, but I absolutely love the country. And I decided that this is where I want to live. And if you're interested in, what keeps me going in Malawi, you can listen to episode 117 of the Living Your Best Life in Africa podcast, where I share my 7 daily habits with you that keep me grounded in Malawi. The last 3 podcast episodes are about my experiences in Malawi now that I am here for a longer period of time. So the key goal was to visit a few countries to whet my appetite, and I actually did that. It was a goal, and I did that. And having done that, I then settled on Malawi. The next action I needed to take was to think about what I was going to do about my home in the UK. I always said, if I long stay, I don't want to lose my home in the UK because I've got children and they might need that home. So I was very, very fortunate because my oldest son was old enough to stay in that property and to keep that property going whilst I am living in another country. But it is something you have to think about, particularly if you rent. Some of these boroughs, the London boroughs and other local authorities, are making it very difficult for you to put someone else in your property, because the moment you do that, they accuse you of subletting. So you do have to plan what you will do with your property, because you are going to come back to the UK to visit family. If you're fortunate enough to have, families who have got their own properties and you can stay with them, great. Then let somebody else have the property so they can rent and have a home. If you own your own home, then the decision is, do you vacate your home completely and rent it out? Or does somebody live in that home so that you can go back to that home when you're visiting the UK? And I chose the latter. Okay, so what I'm going to put here is I was able to get a family member to live in my home. Okay, so the next section is what or who prevents me from achieving that dream. At the time, it was the job, and I'm putting it in capital. That's what tied me down. Okay, that's what prevented me from achieving that dream. Also, I didn't know which country to choose. And what you'll find is when you visit different countries, whether that's in the Caribbean or in Africa, every country you visit, that becomes a country you want to live in. Every country I visited, I wanted to live in that country. Then I wanted to live in another country. And I didn't know which country to choose. Okay? And what finally got me to decide on Malawi was really to do with my faith. My faith and how I practice my faith is very, very significant here in Malawi. It's one of the few countries in Africa where my faith is very, very big in the country. And that was a big, big incentive for me to choose Malawi over some of the other countries. Okay, so I didn't know which country to choose. And then with the home, there wasn't really anything preventing me apart from paying the mortgage. If I didn't have the job. You can see that, paying the mortgage if I didn't have the job. That was what was preventing me. And then for me, it was what skills and knowledge will I need? So I decided that I needed to find something I was good at that would allow me to generate an income, so I could live my best life in my country of choice. That's what I needed to do. That was the skill or the knowledge that I needed so that I could live my life the way I had envisaged my dream. Okay, and then the skills and knowledge that I needed, the main thing that you need when choosing your country, believe it or not, is language. The older you get, the more difficult it is to learn a new language. And I have struggled to learn the language of Malawi, which Malawi has 3 main languages: Chichewa, Chitonga, and Chitumbuka. Chichewa is the biggest language in the country, and my Chichewa is absolutely awful. It's awful. I find it really, really difficult because I carry about 5 or 6 languages in my head. And when I'm trying to communicate, I'm getting the languages mixed up. In my head, I've got Kiswahili, which I speak a little. I've got Amharic, which I speak a little. I've got 2 versions of French. I've got English, and then I've got Chichewa, which is the language of Malawi, and I really, really struggle. And what you find, there are many, many language apps on the market, but there is little to anything for African countries. It's an absolute disgrace, but also it's an indictment on us, really. You know, nobody's going to care about our languages but us, and so it really is down to us to be able to find a way to teach our languages to people who want to learn them. I inquired about learning Chichewa in a formal setting, and the cost for me to learn Chichewa from Europeans at a university was about £6,000 per term. So that put me right off. So language is one of the main skills that we need to be able to communicate. Yes, countries in Africa, all the countries that I've mentioned, all speak English. But for you to really, really get that country under your skin, you really need to be able to speak the language of that country, which for me is Chichewa. And I am really trying hard to learn that language, but it's difficult, especially when you're past your 40s and you're trying to learn a language. It's very difficult. It's much easier when you're younger. So that is the main skill that I need. Everything else in your country, you find, well, certainly in all the African countries I've visited, I found that people have been really generous with their time and they're really helpful. So, you know, helping you to get around, for example, using public transport, helping you to shop for provisions where they shop, showing you where, you know, the post office, the bank, the schools. People are really generous with their time in all the countries that I've mentioned. And so you really just have to be confident enough to ask for that help, and you'll get that help. But other than that, language is the thing that has really, really slowed me down and slowed down my progress. But I am getting there. Okay? And then, because I didn't have to do anything with my home, there wasn't anything I needed to do about that. I was going to rent it out, in which case, had I decided to rent out my home, so I can put that, my home, I need to think about how this will be managed. If I'm thousands of miles away, okay? I'll need to think about how that's going to be managed. As I said, I didn't need to think about that because my son was able to come back and live in that property after he came back from university, so it was good. All right. And so that really is how you complete the template. What I'd love for you to do is to go through and take your time and fill in your own template, mapping your best life dreams to see where you're going to vision yourself in 3 to 5 years' time. Okay? And just going through it in your own way. There's no right or wrong way to fill in the boxes. The main thing is that you're able to draw down your thoughts and put them on paper so that you're able to do something with them. All right? And I'm stop there because I don't want to sort of overwhelm you. I'll stop there and I'll take any questions or comments that you may have. I don't see any, and I know lots of people are struggling to get into the live. But I'll take any questions. Okay? Whilst I'm waiting to see if you've got any questions, I'm going to stop streaming so that you can actually see my face. I've just had to reset the video because when I stopped screen sharing, Facebook closed the feed. So this is just the opportunity for you to ask questions in this section. We won't be very long. Okay? Whilst I'm waiting to see if any questions come up, one of the main questions I have been asked is, how long did it take me from identifying my dreams to actually saying that I spend more time in Malawi than I do in the UK? And I would say altogether it took about 5 years, 5 to 6 years. And I think that's a good amount of time. Now, when you're listening to that, you might think to yourself, gosh, that sounds like a lot of time. But it's not. So much can happen in that time. And time, I don't know about you, but time seems to be flying past. We're already into July, and half the year has already gone. And I don't feel like I've achieved as much as I would have expected to achieve in that time. So 5 years is no time at all. It will go really, really quickly. So what I would say is it's better to start planning as soon as you possibly can to give yourself that maximum time for you to bring your dreams into fruition, really. Give yourself as much time as possible. If you don't start, you end up where you've always been. So it's much, much better to start something than to do nothing and just expect things to change. Okay, so for me, I would say in real terms, about 5 to 6 years. I left my full-time job in 2013, and we are now in 2021, so that's 8 years. I took a couple of years off and did some voluntary work. I just wanted a rest, and then I really got back into this, I would say around about 2015, when I really began to think seriously that, you know, I wanted to make that decision to move. So that's a question that I'm usually asked. Another question that I'm asked is, how did I decide on my income that would replace my job? And for that, what I did was to identify all of the things that I was good at and that I could see myself doing to earn income, to earn money when I'm not in my full-time job. And the question I asked myself when I was choosing what I wanted to do was, could I see myself getting up every morning to do that one thing?
I used to have a job, and when you need that job to live, you don't have a choice about getting up every morning. You drag yourself up, even though you hate that job. You have to drag yourself up to do it. When I'm working on my side hustle, I don't want to feel that way. I want to be doing something that I want to get up in the morning and do. And I can see myself doing it for 5 years, 10 years, whatever the case may be. That's what I wanted. And that's how I chose what I wanted to do, to raise money to replace the money that I was going to lose from my full-time job. Okay, so those are the two main questions that I'm usually asked. And I don't see any questions from you. So I'm not going to keep you. I'm going to end it there. And if you've got any comments or questions, then you can enter those underneath the live, and I'll go into the Facebook group and I'll answer those questions for you. Okay? It's been really great. Thank you for taking the time, and I hope you found it useful. And I really do hope you make a start by filling in template 1 and beginning the process of mapping your dreams so that you've got something to aim for when you are planning how you're going to change your life to live your best life. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next live. Bye for now.